Hey students, so before we start our lesson today, remember we've got a retrieval practice link that you need to complete. So on that very first slide, go ahead and click on the retrieval practice link, and then you're going to click on the Google form, and it's math retrieval 31121. What is your name, your first and your last name? Who is your teacher? Whoever your homeroom teacher is, I want you to click on that. We got some question, guys, that are not related to math. These are just fun questions for you to answer that only you know the answer to. What is the best gift you have ever given? So type your answer in right there. Doesn't have to be a whole paragraph. It can be some words, or it can be one quick sentence. Next, complete the equivalent fraction below. 1/6 is equal to how many 24? So 1/6 is equal to how many 24? This is being able to find equivalent fractions. So you can use your notebook to help you with this. And if you need to go back to some of our previous fraction work a few weeks ago, go ahead and use your notes. Go back to your notes and choose your correct answer right here. All right, so moving on the next one, it says choose the correct symbol to compare the fraction. So 1/3, you're going to choose whether it's greater than, less than, or equal to 1/2. And you can use models in your notebook if you need to build the actual fractions to compare them. You can do that. Or you can use the cross multiply method to do that also. What is the hardest thing about being a kid? Type your answer right here, guys. You can type that in a complete sentence, or you can put it in a few words. After you finish, click on submit and turn it in. So after you've done the retrieval practice, we're going to move on. Today we're going to be discussing comparing decimals, critique, and reasoning. So basically just continuing to compare decimals is what we're doing. This is lesson number 9. And this is our multiplication table to always put in just as you can use as a resource, guys. And on the next 2 slides, this is where you are to insert a picture of your work if you're working in your notebook or if you're working in your binder, so that your teacher can see your work and that you can get credit for your work. Your I can statement for the day: I can compare 2 decimals to hundreds and record results using the symbols less than, greater than, or equal to. Our essential questions are remaining the same for this unit. How does the place of the digit within the base 10 system affect the value of the digit across the decimal point? And also, what is the relationship between fractions and decimals? So comparing decimals. Here, if you're in our live group, we are going to your teacher will probably have you in breakout groups. But if you're working, at home and individually, and you're not on our live lesson, you're still going to be able to do the work. Okay, comparing decimals. This is going to be on our Jamboard. So for the first couple of activities, it's going to be on our actual Jamboard. So you're going to complete that one on our Jamboard, and I'll show you which Jamboard we have. All right, so the Jamboard that we're going to be using has been assigned to you, and this is what it looks like. There are quite a few on here that we're going to be working on today, guys. And let's go back to our lesson. Now, there's also a tool, the tools that you're going to be able to use to help you compare decimals. And that is going to be the same decimal squares that we used yesterday. So the same decimal squares that we used yesterday, you're going to be able to help you to compare. That means, remember, you can build yours as much as you want. You can build them, and you can compare them that way. All right, so let's go back here to our slides. And so going back to the Jamboard, so you're going to be able to choose one of the following decimals: 1.4, 1.34, or 1.43. So 1 4/10, 1 3400ths, or 1 4300. So you get to choose one of these decimals, and the decimal I chose was, you're going to put it right here. You're going to click into the sticky note and type in the decimal that you actually chose. Okay. So after you choose that decimal and you type it here, then you're going to write that decimal as a fraction. You're going to do it here, and then you're going to write it in word form right here. All right, so on our Jamboard, guys, I've gone ahead and just to practice with you, I have chosen 1 4/10 right here. So I've chosen 1 4/10. So right here in the decimal form, I went on and on the sticky note, I typed in 1.4, and it asked me to write the decimal as a fraction form, and I did 1 4/10. So 1 4/10 would be the fraction form of it. You got one whole, and this is your fraction. And also in the word form, I've typed in 1 4/10. So that's the word form of it. So if you choose a different one, you would do similar to what I did here. Okay. Now, the next step is to go to our slide number 2. Now, it says with a partner, compare your decimals by moving the greater than, less than, or equal to sign. Now, if you're working alone, you're not going to have a partner with this unless you have a family member. You can get a family member to work with you on here. But the decimal I chose is 1.4. And how about let's compare, we're going to compare the 1.4 to another one. So how about 1.34? We compare it to that. So I'm going to go ahead and type the 1.4 right here, and then the other one was 1.34. So we're just going to compare those. So now I need to be able to choose whichever symbol, and I'm going to move it once I determine what symbol goes in there, which one is greater, 1.4, 1.34, and in order to help me with that, I can go back to the decimal square. So 1.4, 1.34. Now, we know that both of these have one whole in them. They have one whole number, which is going to be the 1. So this is 1, this is 1. So that represents one whole. So that is the same. So now we actually need to look at the actual everything to the right of the decimal, and that is the part of a whole. We're really comparing which part of the whole is bigger. So you got 4/10 right here, and we're comparing it to 3,400. So 4/10 to 3,400 is what we're comparing. So let's go ahead and build 4/10 over here, and we said 3,400 is the other part. So 3,400 is what I need. So I got 10, 20, 30, and I'm gonna build 2, 3, 4, 3,400. So 4/10, 3,400. And when I look down here, it's easy to see that the greater than symbol is in between. So that means that 4/10 is bigger than 3,400. And I can actually look at it and tell. If I just look at the shaded in part, 4/10 is bigger than 3,400. By the way, guys, if you are trying to manipulate or change what you have on the decimal squares here in order to delete some of them, if you want, let's say for instance, if you didn't want 3,400, you wanted 33, what you would have to do is click on the one next to it. So you click on the one below it, and that'll remove the one in front of it. Okay. In order to build it back, all you got to do is click right in there. Same thing over here. If I wanted to remove one of these tenths, instead of clicking here, I would just click right here, and it would take the one away. Take the one away to the right. So if I wanted to build it back, I would just click in there. All right, so that's my comparison. 4/10 is greater than 3,400. So now I can go back to our Jamboard, and 1 4/10 is greater than 1 3,400. So I can use this symbol and move it up. So that's going to be my answer for that. And so that's the comparison. All right, so now we want to go to use the highlighter tool to model the decimal comparison. So we're going to model them here, and we've got 1 4/10, 1 3,400. So we've got 1 4/10. We saw was greater than 1 3,400. So again, because we know that for the whole number we've got 1 and 1, those are equal. So then really I would be comparing the actual decimal in that, which is 3,400 to 4/10. All right, so on our next slide, Let's see here. So on our next slide, it says use the highlighter tool to model your decimal. So, and the two decimals again, I've got 4/10 and 3400ths. And this is kind of flipped a little bit. This is the hundreds over here. So I wanted to do the 3400ths on this side. So I highlighted 3400ths right here using the black. And for the 4/10ths, I've just shaded in 4 entire tenths on this side. So I've modeled that. So our next slide, we've got Explorer. This is on a Jamboard, guys. The same Jamboard that we just worked on, or it's on page 47. Who jumped further? So Tom, Steve, and Geo each jump in a jumping contest. They measure their jumps and then discuss who jumped further. Tom said, I jumped 1 and 3400ths of a meter. Steve said, I jumped 1 and 4300ths of a meter. Geo says, I jumped 1 and 4/10ths of a meter. Now we're going to go to the Jamboard and take a look at that. All right, so the very same Jamboard that we was just working on, guys. This is where this continues. Who jumped further? Tom, Steve, and Geo each jump in a jumping contest. We've already read this one, but I'll do it again. They measure their jumps and then discuss who jumped further. Tom said, I jumped 1 and 3400ths of a meter. Steve said, I jumped 1 and 4300ths of a meter. And Geo said, I jumped 1 and 4/10ths of a meter. Directions for problems A, B, and C. Model using the decimal grids and write a comparison statement using greater than, less than, or equal to. So we're going to go to our next slide here, and we want to, the question in problem A, which boy jumped further between Tom and Steve? So Tom and Steve is what we're looking at first. How do you know? Use the grids to explain your thinking, then drag the correct comparison symbol to the box. All right. So we're comparing right now Tom and Steve. So the first two up here. So Tom jumped 1 and 3400ths. Steve jumped 1 and 4300ths. Now we already know that 1 is the 1 whole. So, and also both of them have 1 whole. So these kind of offset each other. So we don't really need to compare these two because these are the same. So what we really need to compare is going to be the hundreds part of it, 3400ths to 4300ths. So 3400ths to 4300ths is what we really need to compare. All right, so I've gone ahead and shaded them in. So we got Tom is right here, 1 and 30. So we're comparing the 3400ths of a meter for Tom, and I've shaded in 34. So this is 10, 10, and another 10, that's 30, plus I got 4 of the units. And over here for Steve, it was 4300ths that I'm comparing for Steve. 10, 20, 30, 40, 1, 2, 3. Now we can look at them, and it is obvious that Steve has more shaded in. So this is going to be the larger number. So the mouth is going to open up to that one. And what we're going to be able to do, the instruction said to draw the correct symbol below. So we're actually going to draw that symbol in there. And I'm going to use the green. I'm going to use the pen tool to have the mouth open up to the bigger one, which is going to be Steve. So Tom's is less than Steve's. So that means that the 3400s for Tom is smaller than the 4300s for Steve. So when we go to our next part, guys, so we've already done this one. This is slide number 5 on our Jamboard. Now we're going to go to slide number 6 on our Jamboard. Now we are comparing Tom and Geo. So Tom, remember, was 3400s. So we're going to go over here and shade in his 3400s for Tom. And we've got Geo was 4/10, so we need to represent 4/10 for Geo. And remember, that one is just 4 of these completed. So that's going to be 4/10 for Geo. And clearly, when you look at these, you'll see that Geo has more shaded in than Tom. Geo has more shaded in than Tom. But remember, if you need to go back to our decimal squares and you represent, so 4/10, 3400ths, that is already given here. You see 4/10 is bigger than 34/100. All right, so the symbol that we're going to use here is, I'm going to use the pen feature on that. The mouth, again, is going to open up to the larger fraction, and it's going to be geo as the larger one. All right, so we've completed, so we've done the first comparison was Tom and Steve, and then we did Tom and Geo together, I showed you. So next up, if you look at slide 7, you're going to compare Steve and Geo. So that's something I want you to do on your own. Go ahead and compare Steve and Geo, just pretty much like I did for the previous ones. So Steve and Geo. And then on slide number 8, you're going to answer this one. This one says Mitch. So Mitch is not up here, but Mitch jumped a distance between Steve and Geo. How far could he have jumped, and how do you know to use the grids to help support your thinking? So for this one, this is going to be in between Steve and Geo's, and you're just going to pick a number that could be in between Steve and Geo's for Mitch. And you're going to type your explanation down here at the bottom. So type in your explanation right here at the very bottom. All right, so back to our slides, guys. This is also more practice for you, more independent practice. This is also on that very same Jamboard, or this is on page 49. Remember, if you do it in your binder, page 49, you would have to take a picture of your work and insert it into the slides. This is just, we're continuing to compare the decimals. We're just continuing to compare the decimals using those symbols greater than, less than, or equal to. So let's go back to the actual Jamboard, and I'll show you which one. So remember, Tom, Steve, and Geo, you completed these right here, and then you're gonna go to who won the race. So Sarah, Bria, and Sajal each run in a sprinting race. They use a stopwatch to time each run. Sarah said, "My time is 6 and 4,500 seconds." Bria said, "My time is 6 and 5,300 seconds." Sajal said, "My time is 6 and 5/10 seconds." So remember, when you're running a race, the first person to get there is going to be the winner, and the first person to get there is going to have the smallest time. They're going to have the shortest amount of time. So the smallest amount of time in a race is going to be the winner, and the person who has the largest amount of time is going to be further down in the race. All right, so go to your next slide. So Sarah said, "My time is 6 and 4,500. You just represent just like we did on the previous one. We're just representing it on our grids here. And you're comparing on the first one, you're comparing Sarah and Bria. So I've gone ahead and started on the first one here. So it says we're comparing Sarah. So Sarah's time is 6 and 4,500, and Bria's time is 6 and 5,300. Remember, the 6 is the same for all of them. So we don't need to compare that if they are exactly the same. So what we need to compare are the fraction part of it, the ones that are less than a whole. So we need to compare the 4,500s to the 5,300s, and then we're going to be looking at the 5/10. So those are the ones that we need to compare, because these all are the same with the 6. So Sarah, 4,500s. So I'm representing, so Sarah, 4,500s. So now I need to do the, for her, again, the 4,500. So I've got 10, 20, 30, 40, and 3, 4, 5 for her. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 45 for her. And let me make sure to shade that out. Okay. So we got 45 for Sarah, and for Bria, we have 5,300s. 10, 20, 30, 40, 53 for Bria. Now, when you look at it, and remember, which girl ran faster between Sarah and Bria? Remember, the smaller time is going to be the faster one. So the smaller time is going to be the faster person. All right, so use the highlighter tool to show your thinking on the grid, and then we're actually going to, instead of dragging, we're going to draw comparisons. So For this one, the bigger number, of course, is going to be, that means the person with the slower time, and that's going to be Bria. So when you look at it, the 5300s is bigger than the 4500s. So when we do that and we draw our symbol to compare these two numbers, this one is bigger, but that means that the person who ran faster was going to be Sarah. So Sarah actually ran faster on that one. And after we've already done this one together, so you would just go ahead and continue your comparisons on the Jamboard. So there's a 12th one here, slide number 12. There's 13, just similar comparisons as what you're doing. 14. So it goes all the way through 14. And when you finish with that independent work, guys, on the Jamboard, remember to work on Dreambox.